F. Scott Fitzgerald was born in St. Paul, Minnesota on September 24, 1896, to parents Molly and Edward Fitzgerald. In St. Paul, Fitzgerald attended St. Paul Academy. He was described as a handsome and ambitious boy and the pride and joy of his parents, especially his mother, for good reason. At the age of 13, Fitzgerald's first piece of writing, a detective story, was published in his school newspaper. As time progressed, Fitzgerald's family recognized his talent and sent him to the Newman School, a prep school in New Jersey where he met Father Sigourney Fay, who also recognized his potential, mentored him, and encouraged him to pursue his literary career. After graduating from the Newman School, Fitzgerald continued his literary career at Princeton University, where he wrote scripts for the school musicals and articles for the Princeton Tiger and Nassau literary magazines. Fitzgerald was unable to keep up with his coursework, so he dropped out from Princeton University after being placed on academic probation. He then joined the Army. In 1917, Fitzgerald was preparing to fight in World War I. Many have said, out of fear of death and his writing ambitions being unfulfilled, he quickly wrote the novel The Romantic Egoist, which was unfortunately rejected by publishers. Since World War I ended in 1918, Fitzgerald was never deployed, so when he was discharged, he moved to New York in pursuit of his career as a writer, where he met his girlfriend Zelda. After convincing Zelda to marry him, the two of them moved back to St. Paul.
F. Scott Fitzgerald married Zelda on April 3, 1920. Their relationship consisted of drinking, partying, and fighting, and they had one child named Francis. Zelda was a writer and artist, and was the emblem of the 1920s liberated woman. She was flirty and carefree, and both of them lived an extravagant lifestyle. In 1930, she suffered a mental breakdown and was in and out of European clinics for years. In 1931, she went back to the U.S. And in 1932, she suffered another breakdown, where she wrote Save Me the Waltz. After this, she was in and out of clinics again, and in 1936, she went to the Highland Hospital in North Carolina, where she continued to write and paint. Sadly, in 1948, she suffered and died in a fire, and never succeeded creatively.
And she's not backing down. This girl is on fire.
He finished 4 books: This Side of Paradise, The Beautiful and Damned, Tender is the Night, and The Great Gatsby.
Towards the end of Mr. Fitzgerald's life, he began to rely heavily on alcohol and almost became incurable as an alcoholic. In 1937, Fitzgerald was able to come out of his slump and become a Hollywood scriptwriter. Fitzgerald would go on to write another novel on Hollywood called The Last Tycoon.
His final book, The Last Tycoon, was never finished and was published after his death. He was known as one of the great influencers from his generation, defining what it was like to live in the peak of the 20s. His peak writing came from the late 20s to the early 30s. His career began to end as he fell into serious alcoholism, and as his best work only came in his sober times, his career ultimately failed and plummeted to the ground, and he died of a heart attack at 44 in 1940.
F. Scott Fitzgerald's legacy lives on today. Since The Great Gatsby was published in 1925, his book has been turned into numerous movies and TV shows. His writing is a timeless example of the affluence of the 1920s and continues to live on today. F. Scott Fitzgerald's legacy lives on today. F. Scott Fitzgerald. F. Scott Fitzgerald. F. Scott Fitzgerald. F. Scott Fitzgerald. F. Scott. F. Scott. F. Scott. F. Scott.
Woo! Check it out, 1, 2. Angus Class, how we feeling? Woo! Hey Johnson. Here we go. Look at me. it's Swaggy P, doing my boy F. Scott's biography. Born 1896 in North St. Paul, had a knack for writing though he was quite small. He wrote a few stories, wrote for some magazines. Then our boy flunked out of Princeton and joined the Marines. Stationed down in Alabama, he trained down there. Met a pretty painter partyer named Zelda Set. He made a lot of money from his very first book, so the two got married without another look. The two moved to France in the city of Paris. That's where Scotty wrote the masterpiece, The Great Gatsby. He lived a lavish life, yet he soon saw his doom, as big bad writers started taking all the room. Then he's drinking all the time and he's sinking. Now you're thinking when he fell on down, grab some liquor to lighten up now. Tried to come back up, but he never felt happy, drowning in his own pity and problems and peach brandy. It wasn't long later his heart began to fail. F. Scotty died 44, an author of no avail.